All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Hello and welcome to the Actual Anarchy podcast. It's that podcast where we talk about movies from a Rothbardian and Anarcho-Capitalist perspective. And tonight we are about to unplug from the May-trix. Yes, it's sad but true. We are winding down on the month of May and our May-trix series, where we did May-trix, May-trix Reloaded, May-trix Revolutions, and tonight Animatrix. Before we get into that on the last night's portion of the show and introduce our guest, let's say hello to Robert. How are things going with you? And I think last week you were telling me about 3-year-olds and how reckless they are, and how dangerous they tend to be. Has that remedied in any way in the past week?
I'm happy to report that there have been no new suicide attempts. I'm excited about that. And there have been no new murder attempts. He's still, toddlers are still dangerous. They're kind of like I don't know what's a good analogy. Just something that you don't expect it, and then bam! It's when you let your guard down. That's when you're vulnerable. You need to be up. You need to have your judo and your jujitsu skills up at all times. I had him on my lap, and he was giggling, and then he slammed his head up against the wall, just kind of randomly. And then after that, I put my hand in between his head and the wall, and I was like, I'm going to catch this kid's head next time he tries to slam his head into a wall. And of course, he never did it again. It's okay. You can't tell. It's just, you never know with these little guys. You try and do your best, and you try and keep them alive, but
Right. Well, the good thing is they kind of bounce.
They're made of rubber.
Yeah, they bounce for a while. Yeah.
They do. And, they get a boo-boo, you kiss it better, and then it's forgotten about, and you move on to the next thing he's going to hurt himself with. But at least it's not, of course, something horrible could happen. It's like, but so far, so good. It's just little boo-boos here and there, even though it looks like something that would leave a giant welt on your head for like a month.
Yeah.
You kiss it, and it's better, and it's forgotten about in 3 seconds with these little ones. They're little machines.
Yeah, well, quite appropriate for the episode tonight as we're continuing our series on the Matrix, talking about little machines. Now, I have some news to report on my side. I don't know if you were aware, but I have had 2 weeks of being unplugged from the Matrix of work. I took 2 weeks off to kind of like not to be stressed out all the time, and it's been great. Unfortunately, I have to go back in a few days.
No. Do you have some dread about returning to the grind?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, part of the reason I wanted to unplug from that Matrix is because it was like just intense and getting really stressful and overwhelming. And so I needed to walk away for a little bit. And part of it was like a cooling off period to make sure that I was going to make a decision with a level head. Because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is what I told my manager. And she's like, take 2 weeks off. So here I am near the end of the 2 weeks. And I'm not sure which way I want to go, but I can tell you I do have that sense of dread for next Monday.
And do they is this the first time you've taken time off in quite some time? Are they recognizing all the tremendous amount of work you do, or did they just like, they barely missed you?
Judging from the emails that I've tried to like keep an eye on, they probably miss me tremendously. The manager told me that there should be 3 or 4 people doing the workload that I do, but whether that will be remedied in any way, I doubt.
Yeah, I can understand that. If they know you can do it, then they're happy to just let you do it. And that's yeah.
So-
If you ever were to leave, then they're like, okay, now we have to hire like 2 or 3 people. But as long as Dan can do it, just let
Yeah,
him
why
do it.
not? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's one of the curses of being slightly skilled enough to where they know you'll get something done, so they send you the stuff that needs to be done. Unfortunately, there's no way to limit or regulate the amount of work that comes my way. And so all of the different projects I work on in different areas just kept stacking up and stacking up and stacking up.
Have you ever
And,
considered the Costanza approach?
I don't think that would play for me.
No, it wouldn't. Wasn't it? He was just like always swamped, and like there's just nothing you could throw at him because he's just always way too busy. Or was that the guy from Dilbert?
Yeah, I don't recall. I when you say the Costanza, I think of him sleeping under the desk, which I could not get away with.
Was that wrong?
That was sleeping with the janitorial services lady.
Yeah,
was that
right.
wrong?
Right. No, was that wrong? If I had known.
All right, T-Bone.
Anyway.
Well, hey, we should get into our episode. I'm sure that this is super boring for everyone else, but this is the Animatrix episode. You can find the show notes more at actualanarchy.com/235. This is the 235th episode of these here Olympic Games, and we will get into the last minute portion of the show and introduce our guest, Ryan, the Afrolibertarian, right after these messages. Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood, and my co-host is Robert Paul Johnson. We are the Last Nighters. You can find us on lastnighters.com and also on the Liberty Movement's YouTube channel. We're going to be doing episode 178 tonight, and it is the end of May-trix. We're about to unplug from the May-trix, and this is our series on the May-trix movies. And tonight we're doing the Animatrix with the Afrolibertarian. This is a 2003 animated science fiction anthology film produced by the Wachowskis, and it is a compilation of 9 animated short films based on the May-trix trilogy, which means we will have approximately 5 minutes to discuss each one as we only try to do the show for about an hour. But Ryan Jones is the Afrolibertarian. He's been our guest a couple times in the past. He's been on for Watchmen, Logan, and Selma. And since he is a comic book guy and wanted to talk about the Matrix, we decided that the Animatrix would be a great fit for him. So welcome back to the show, Ryan. How's it going?
Hey guys, welcome. I'm happy to be back. Missed you guys.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I forget when we did Logan and Watchmen. It must have been at least 2 years ago. So I'll put the show notes page. We'll have all the links to those. And but yeah, it's been far too long, and I'm glad that we were able to reconnect and get into talking about the Matrix. You said you got re-interested in it a while back and started researching it, and I thought that you might have some insights for us, but you said
no,
not to lean on you too
really.
much.
Yeah, don't lean on me too much. I hadn't watched the movies in a while, but there's this YouTube channel that just started. You know, that YouTube started forcing me to watch pretty much, like in the algorithm is like Matrix Explained or something like that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
the dude just goes like real deep into each like every little thing about the Matrix, and I was just like going down a rabbit hole every night and just like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, I hadn't thought of this.
Yeah.
But I just love the whole Matrix. I know the Matrix Reloaded and very much so Revolutions gets bagged on over, and I get it. Like Revolutions like wasn't perfect at all, but just overall the whole universe, the story, and just all of the ways you can apply that story to real life. I just love it, man. It's just one of the. It's up there with Star Wars and the Spielberg movies and all the classics. It's up there with those to me.
Yeah, I would agree with you, especially with the first one. I think it was a cultural phenomena that left an indelible mark for sure.
Man, like I've never had that feeling watching a movie since, because if you remember, the marketing was so. I mean, they revealed nothing, and this was, people, there weren't any internet leaks and stuff like that where we know everything about a movie before it comes out, and they intentionally didn't put much out. It was just like, really, what is the Matrix? We really didn't know, and just going into the movie, just think you're going to see like a cool, like martial arts type of flick, and then they reveal, that we're actually in the future, and all of this is a simulation, and that was just like a great theatrical experience. You know what I'm saying? That you could never recreate. You know what I'm saying? That was just one of those things I'd never forget.
Yeah, and they successfully merged all these different genres together, and it works brilliantly. I think, Robert, you said this was the original Matrix is your number 2 film of all time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It blends the sci-fi, the philosophy, and the martial arts all in a really tight script with a fantastic hero story, and it's just one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and then Ryan, we did reviews of Reloaded and Revolutions the last couple of weeks, and Reloaded actually it aged pretty well. It actually is better than I remember from the first time I ever saw it. Revolutions, not so much. It kind of just goes off the rails a little bit. And in fact, our guest last week gave it the first 0 score on our show. But he still liked he likes the Matrix, and he likes like the ideas brought up. He just said that the execution was just so bad in that one. So unfortunately, it was our first 0. But anyway, I'm glad that you're on to come and talk about the Animatrix. And how we usually start these off is with the Google description. So I'm going to pull that up on screen now, Star Trek style. And here we go. The Animatrix came out in 2003, got a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.3 out of 10 on My Anime List, and 82% of Google users like it. The Animatrix is a 2003 animated science fiction anthology film produced by the Wachowskis. It is a compilation of 9 animated short films based on the Matrix trilogy, which was written and produced by the Wachowskis. 4 of the shorts were also written by the Wachowskis. Release date is June 3rd, 2003. Numerous directors. It's in English and Japanese, and it's adapted from The Matrix and had a budget of about $15 million. And Robert, I will go to you for your opening bid, please.
Well, one of the things I love about The Matrix is just the richness of the world. I can't tell you how many times even if the movies are bad, I still love the universe that they've created. So like in the Star Wars universe, a lot of these recent movies I'm not a fan of, but I love the world and all the rules in play and the characters. And you could just have infinite adventures in your mind or in comic books or in animation, such as we see here. The Matrix world is a rich one with a wide variety of stories to tell. And I like the idea of they took a bunch of stories and they went to like the top anime directors of the day. I want to say like Madhouse is a big one. They did the world record short. And I want to say I recognize a few others, but I can't off the top of my head. Maybe if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would have recognized more of them, but it's been a while since I've really been into these animation studios. But you're going to have some varying quality based on what you like, since you have such wide, disparate directing styles and story styles. Like one's a kind of a short detective story, and another one's about sports, and another one's about kids, and another one's about this sort of weird haunted space where the Matrix is all screwed up. And then you've got like some more historical ones with the Renaissance bits. Now, maybe because we were really diving into this and wanting to know more about the world, I really attached to the Renaissance, to the 2 Renaissance parts. I thought those were the 2 most ripe for discussion in terms of the world that they've built. These are the ones that really expand on the world building of the universe. They explain how the machines got to be in the position they were at the start, in the very beginning of Matrix. And I probably want to talk to you guys about whether you think that this is a plausible scenario. The Renaissance films, they play on a lot of like famous iconography. Like they've got the robots building the pyramids. They've got the Million Machine March. They've got the Vietnam War execution. They got the Tiananmen Square. They're playing with a lot of classic iconic images in people's minds. And I guess it's a short form way of kind of explaining their plight and trying to get like the viewer kind of trying to identify with the machines as these injustices happening to them. It's a fairly effective. I think they get some sympathy from me, but I'm sure we'll get into it. Overall, although I think that the Animatrix is a mixed bag. I thought that the Matriculated, the one where the humans were trying to get the machines on their side, at one point they go into this program where they're trying to show that they're good people. And I didn't know what the hell's going on. There's just a bunch of lights and shapes and colors and people were running around. And I was like, what is this? I don't even know. What do you... And then they're like, oh, yeah, you're good and we like you and whatever. It lost me. But
that was some good acid, man.
Yeah, it was basically like Yellow Submarine style. Like, I don't even know what this is. Is this a story? What did you guys all forget how to do things? But I think there's something in there, something in here for everybody for the most part. If you are a fan of the Matrix world, even if you're not an anime fan, I think you'll like watching the Animatrix to get a deeper understanding and to experience different stories set in this universe. So overall, I think it's strong, but some stories are stronger than others, of course.
Yeah, I think that you're right on a lot of those things, and I do have a new appreciation for these because we have recently watched all the films and have been trying to explore them a bit, and this does fill in some of those gaps, which is kind of helpful. But I think you've made the comment in the past, so I shouldn't need to go to ancillary works to understand the main works. You know, these should be like filling in like nice to knows, not need to knows, and I feel like Revolutions, this has a few need to knows from the Animatrix to make Revolutions kind of make more sense.
Okay. I maybe do you have like an example of that? Because I don't think you need to know, like, to watch. If you watch this and you go, you're watching the first and second Renaissances, I think it's interesting to find out. But you don't necessarily need to know that to know, obviously, to enjoy the first Matrix. What areas of the Revolutions, like, was it with the explanation of why the robot suits were crappy, or what?
Well, they did cover that.
Yeah, I hated that, by the way. I thought it was real dumb.
Yeah, well, so I don't have like specific examples, but I feel like it does fill out a lot of like the corners of the ideas and concepts. Like we've got the athletic guy who's pushing his body to the limit, and he's finding that he can kind of break the barrier between reality and what the Matrix is, like trying to contain him just through his physical exertion and effort. And like that's an interesting wrinkle to like have at play. I don't know if it really helps so much, but I guess I was sort of talking out of my ass a little bit. But, you know, Revolutions, it doesn't make a lot of sense, you know, and so having this additional kind of information is a bit helpful, right? Because we sort of have Neo in Revolutions sort of blurring the lines as well between what's real in the real world and what's in the Matrix, because he can like control the machines, and he goes to the source, and something happens after he fights Smith for the 50th time and refuses to quit. I don't know. Like maybe that ties to the athletic guy. You know, he's like pushing himself to persevere. Like he goes through that quadricep pull, like his muscles tear, which is, I used to be a runner, the worst thing I would fear would be like my knees giving out or like my Achilles tendon snapping. And seeing the Matrix, that version of this was like especially painful to me. And he
Mm,
just runs right through it. And that's like him blurring the lines of like, this is in my mind. It's not
right.
really that my muscles have torn, so I'm gonna push through it. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
tore
know.
my calf running one time, and I was hobbled for like 2 weeks. So I'm definitely don't have that kind of willpower. It's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. So Ryan, let's get you in on this. So you already gave us a little bit of your thoughts on the original Matrix and the cultural impact that it had. How do you feel about the other movies in the series, and does the Animatrix help you to better understand those other two?
It does, and I love, like I said, I liked all three. I love, actually have no problems with Matrix Reloaded. I thought it was just a, just a great sequel. It fit right in with the original. I don't even have much, much to nitpick about Matrix Reloaded. I loved it from beginning to end. Obviously Revolutions had its issues, and with all these movies, what I mean, if you have a trilogy, one of them is not going to be as good as the others. It's just, it's just a part of the game. It's hard to get three movies right, and it was capping off an into a fantastic series. So, but even then, even in Revolutions, there were some things that I loved. I loved, you know, Neo. I love the story arc of Neo being told he's the one. He finds out he's not really the one, but still kind of wills himself into being the one. Even though he's not the one uh, that Morpheus was told to believe he was, but he still willed himself into being like a somewhat of a not a savior, but to at least stop the war for a short time period between the machines and humans. Um, so I love that part of it. I just love the look of it. I love him going to Machine City and jacking in through the master machine, whatever you want to call it, Deuce Machina, ex Deuce Machina, whatever it was, and then going to battle with Agent Smith with the billions of other Smiths watching him. Yeah, I love the music. What's the guy that did like the score? Rob Duggan or something? I mean, it's just
Trent
awesome.
Reznor and someone else, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, it was just awesome. Like I loved it. I love the whole series. And Animatrix just fits right in, man. I mean, it was a anthology series, so with those, some of the stories are going to be weird. But I just love, like you talked about, Rob. Just tapping into other parts of the universe. I guess this Matrix has been around for a while, so there's all kind of weird things going on. So I just love that it just showed that all of these little stories are happening throughout the Matrix. Like it doesn't take the time to overdose you with details about like what time frame it is in the Matrix, which Matrix it's in, because there's been like 6 versions that we know of the Matrix. Um, Even with like the Renaissance, the second Renaissance episodes, those are those are introduced as like a documentary style recording of something being held in the Zion archives, and we know the Zion was pretty much just another method of control by the machines. And so, who put that recording there? Obviously, the machines did. So the machines are giving a representation of how they thought the war between them and the humans went. Like that's the machines' history through their perspective. And I just love that they did it that way because it's just interesting. It's like them telling you, their story, and this is our story through our eyes, through the machine's eyes, not the human's eyes. I just thought that was interesting.
That is interesting because now it makes a little bit more sense why it's sort of from a perspective of them being more heroic, them being aggrieved.
It's a propaganda piece.
Yeah.
Even whether what's truthful and what's not, we don't know. But it's a propaganda piece from their perspective, and that's just kind of cool. Like just to think to do it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if that's meant for the humans to watch, that would give them some kind of perspective, or maybe make them more hesitant to fight back.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if
Absolutely.
everything is just a method of control, womp. I put the logo up here. But if everything is a method of control, then maybe like this is the 7th time through the Matrix, and now we're getting the Animatrix, which is like giving us a history of the machines from a perspective of them kind of being oppressed.
Yeah.
And because I don't know, it's like you can read this so many different ways, and what you were just saying has made me kind of think like, well, maybe everything is within the Matrix in its entirety. There is nothing
Yeah.
actually happening in the real world at all, ever.
Right. It's a theory. It's a theory that's out there. Like the whole thing was a system of control. I mean, Morpheus, he's been operating on a lie the entire time, and he's like this kind of a a religious zealot, pretty much in their in their universe, like just telling everyone to believe in this prophecy. We're going to find the one, and he's just going around unplugging, red pilling people, just in search of the one, thinking, with no evidence that this person is going to save us, and and then in the end, in Matrix Revolutions, he pretty much finds out that he's been told a lie. Like the Oracle is presented at first as this kind of good person, but come to find out, she is um, just another program for the system of control.
Yeah.
Even though she, in a way, she is fighting for the humans, is still trying to keep them within the framework of being controlled by the machines. But
Yeah.
she just understands that you can't conquer all humans. You have to give them at least a choice. She introduced the notion of choice, and that's the only way you could really control the humans, because if you just force them to be slaves and try to conquer them, they reject it, and and that's just true in real life, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we see that with our own governments. It's like they give us this fake choice. We go vote every 4 years.
Hmm.
Like we control what's actually going on. The allegories are you can just go forever with the Matrix.
Yeah, that's a good point about the false choice or the fake choices, and giving you an illusion of control, an illusion of choice, and so that is a steam release valve, and it helps you to not resist in other ways, because then you can resist at the ballot box.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Now, not to change subject too much, but it's been reported that this 4th Matrix film that's coming out at the end of the year here has Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity.
Yeah.
And she looked pretty damn dead at the end of Revolutions.
Right.
So was that all happening within another shell of the Matrix? And if that's true, then doesn't that kind of undercut the entire first trilogy? Like, if it was all just methods of control, which I enjoy the allegory, I enjoy that story, that theme, but doesn't that make all the struggles of the humans and the heroes in that story kind of meaningless?
I think that it sort of does, but so does like scale of time, right? Like in the length of the universe, human existence is but a blink of the eye. And so all of our trials and tribulations, while important to us in our time, to the universe or to a long enough time scale, are meaningless and insignificant. So if we're looking at it just from the basis of, hey, here's a cool story with all these allegories then yeah, it's definitely worth the time and perspective. But if it's, you know, if it all was like just undone or unwound because it happened to be within the shell of a shell, and now we're on the 8th version of the Matrix, well, then that's another like revelation, right? In this, and it doesn't negate all the information provided prior to that necessarily. Like that was still an interesting story, still interesting things going on, and maybe they've kicked it up a notch. Bam, kicked it up a notch.
Yeah. Also, one of the theories that's been kicked around is, there is no natural procreation with humans in this universe. They're all they're not artificial humans, but they're clones pretty much. They're grown in the lab. They're grown, they're test tube babies. You know what I'm saying? Like, so while Trinity might be in it again, and we know Neo, Keanu Reeves going to be in it, it's just a new version of them. It just you recreated through their DNA, just using their DNA. So it's like the same humans are being recreated over and over again in these new matrices. Is that a word?
Matrices? Matri?
Matrices? I don't know. What the hell? But yeah, so it's like, it's not like, men and women are procreating and making natural born humans. These are lab grown humans. So, if you remember in Matrix Reloaded, when Neo was talking to the architect, which is probably one of my like top 10 just favorite scenes ever in movies, just that whole time he's just talking to the architect. And I like, when I first saw that, I was like, I have no idea what this guy's saying, but it sounds good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you remember, you had all the screens behind them, and when Neo would react, all the screens had Neo on it, and there were different reactions in each screen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some theories that every screen was like a different version of a Matrix, or every screen was like a different possible outcome in a computer simulation.
Okay, I thought it was like each time he had been through before, and this was the 6th time. And
right.
So those were like,
that's what some people think. Some people think there's only been 6 matrices, but maybe there have been like hundreds of simulations, within the sphere of, not within the matrix, but like within the, the master computer system, or whatever you want to call it, within the program. So, and the not Neo the person, but the one is an invention of the architect and the machines. Like that's another method of control that they instituted to give a fake savior to the humans and reboot the matrix every time. And every time that matrix reboots and reloads, the machines grow closer and closer towards the 100% control of all humans. So they're willing to sacrifice, that 1% of humans that create Zion and have the little war and all that stuff. But every time they're learning more and more. This is AI, so they're learning more and more every time they reboot the system and reload the matrix. They're learning more and more about humans and how to effectively control all of them, and that's the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Each iteration, they're improving on the prior one. They even talk about in the original Matrix that the first Matrix system was like a utopia, and the human minds rejected it. Whole crops were lost, crops were lost.
Yeah.
And the more you're talking, the more I'm thinking like everything is all just within the humans' minds in the pods.
Right.
And there is nothing happening outside of the pods at all, ever. And this is just a way to keep more of those pod people viable. And so they might make, pod person 1, 2, 3, 4 think he's Neo next time.
Yeah.
Right. On the next reboot, like they're just like jacking minds to keep them into thinking or remaining viable, remaining active, or whatever they need to do to generate the electrical current that they're harvested from them.
Or what if there's just instances of the Matrix, and there's an instance for the Matrix for each and every pod person, and everybody gets to pretend to be Neo, and everyone's the hero in this story.
Right.
That'd keep you interested if you're the hero.
Yeah. No, that's a good theory.
Ryan, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna flip subjects on you again. I don't know how much you've looked into this fourth movie coming out, but I know that the one Wachowski has written it and is directing it, and then Neo and Trinity are both back, and then there's a few other new characters. But I was just wondering if you've got high hopes for this, if there's something particular you want to see out of this next movie, if you think it's going to be good. What are your thoughts?
I've been trying to not to look at any leaks, and it seems like they've been doing a pretty good job not to put much out there. But just from what I could tell, I mean, I have no idea what to expect, man. Like, it's almost like the first Matrix. Like, I have no idea. I am a little worried though. I mean, just with Lana Wachowski, she. I'm not mispronouncing. She is like she could be a little heavy-handed sometimes. I don't know if you guys have you ever watched the show Sense8? Sense8.
Who brought up Sense8? One of our
Mike did.
Was it Mike? Mike said Sense8 was pretty good, but no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was a Netflix series, and it was interesting. It was good at times. It was interesting, but there were going to be some parts where you're like, whoa. It's like, so she could be a little heavy-handed, not so much in like the woke stuff, but more like she could be heavy-handed in like the point she's trying to get across. And sometimes she'll do things where it's like she doesn't really care about the story so much, but she just wants to get her point across. So I just hope it's not just a project for her where she just wants to just kind of use the Matrix to make some kind of statement or whatever. I'm just hoping it's not something like that, and I hope that she's really like loyal to the universe she created, her and her brother, and her and her sister, and then and just expand the story some type of way. I just hope she doesn't burn it down just for the sake of doing it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like Star Wars.
Exactly. Like.
Yeah, where the story takes a backseat to the politics or the whatever statement or whatever message that the director wants to get out there.
Exactly.
They want to editorialize to everybody.
Right, exactly. So that's the only thing I'm worried about, and I mean, we'll see, because she's talented and she's smart, so it could come out well, and you got Keanu Reeves to sign on to it, and I don't think Morpheus is in it, but that could change. They keep those things secret. I think the Merovingian is supposed to be in it, which I think is interesting because he was one of the more interesting characters from the Matrix universe.
Yeah, he doesn't die in Revolutions, does he?
No, he doesn't die. I mean, he's been around since the first Matrix. Like, he's been around since the beginning. Like, he was, I think Oracle said he's one of the oldest of us.
Right.
So he's like, I just want him to go deeper into like exactly what his role is.
It makes sense. He's living that very decadent lifestyle, very high end. Mm-hmm. He's the utopian.
Yeah, that could be something. He could be from the utopian universe.
Yeah, where everything's so good. Yeah, interesting.
And he was also apparently a part of the horror Matrix, because if you remember, they talked about the first Matrix, which was utopian. The second Matrix was this horror, like pretty much a horror show, where you had wolves and vampires and all this stuff, and that's where like the twins came from, the ones that could like disappear and walk through walls and stuff like that from Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah,
they had that one guy. He was apparently a werewolf, but they never really showed him. So there's this apparent horror universe, and the Merovingian gets a lot of his crew from that universe. Like those are programs from that universe that he kind of recruits or whatever. So I don't know. There's like a whole different, you could go deep. You know what I'm saying with some of this stuff. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he has like a major like evil role in the next movie or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting if he played more of a villain, straight villain role. Or
Mhm.
I don't even know what's. It's such a rich universe. They could go any number of directions. I'm not extremely confident on
No.
Lana's abilities these days,
Yeah.
but I mean, she's had 20 years to think about it. Maybe it's gonna blow my hair back. I don't know. We'll see. Hoping.
I'm
Yeah. Now,
hoping, man.
Robert, you were saying earlier you had a fear that it might get revealed that all of this stuff was meaningless, all the stuff we've seen before. Do you have similar feelings about The Last Jedi and what that did to the Star Wars universe?
Last Jedi.
Or
You
The
mean
Rise of
where-
Skywalker, the very final movie that came out, where it kind of negated the whole point of the original trilogy.
You'd have to. I mean, I'd have to get back into that mindset of thinking about those films.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to say that they did kind of shit on the original trilogy a fair
Oh, yeah.
amount. Totally changed Luke, made his struggle all
Man.
meaningless.
Don't get me started.
I mean, there's a million things to talk about. I don't remember exactly all my points.
I just ignore them. I act like they don't exist.
There is a danger. There is a danger that Lana could, in the 20 years since, have been rethinking some things and
Yeah.
oh no, this is problematic and oh, we gotta
Oh,
fix all this crap and whatever. Hopefully she doesn't go back and rewrite, George Lucas style or even Disney these days, the original stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the cool things I think about the Matrix, and maybe this is one of the reasons why it's so successful, is that there are a lot of like folklore and fables that they sort of built their universe around and into. And so they only have to go so far with what they're doing because the audience is already aware of these folklore and fables and other things that they're sort of talking to and about. So you can kind of fill in the rest on your own.
Yeah, it makes the world, it's like a shorthand version of creating like a really, really rich historical world. It's pretty well done.
Right. And then there's that microcosm example in the Second Renaissance with those iconic moments from history
yeah.
being played out, where they're doing that on a sort of a micro scale, because you have all the historical, Tiananmen Square and the Vietnamese guy getting shot in the head and all those things, like that's in the consciousness of the viewer. And so when they see that on the screen for that 1 or 2 seconds worth, you're getting a lot more than 1 or 2 seconds of information.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're getting the whole history of the civil rights marches and the police abuses and the sit-ins and the whatever. You can just imagine the kind of pushes and pulls and the tensions between the humans and the robots. Yeah, absolutely. Just in that brief moment.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and they don't even have to like have it totally how they want it to be told. Like you can sort of choose your own adventure a little bit. You can interpret it how you want. Like they're just doing enough to get it to the point where the viewer can then, however they feel about that time they're referencing or that point they're referencing. So it leaves a lot of like wiggle room, right?
Sure. And you got the one original robot that fought back, right? That didn't want to die, didn't want to be deleted, didn't want to be ended. And I know many universes and franchises have played with that subject matter of a robot becoming self-aware and not wanting to be deleted, not wanting to be ended, and fights back and kills a
His
human,
honor.
and how dare he fight back and kill a human. And then there's a trial, which is nice. It plays on a lot of elements of injustices
Yeah.
in our world. And so, yeah, I came out of it, even though it was a propaganda piece and probably didn't happen exactly the way I said it did. It was still somewhat plausible.
Yeah.
And it definitely gave me some empathy for the plight of the machines, even though it doesn't necessarily justify what they're doing now. But you can kind of see why they see humanity as the enemy.
Yeah. And it was, I loved how the machines, like, just, they basically, like, moved to, like, I don't know, I guess it was kind of in the Middle East.
Yeah.
They said they moved to the,
Machine
like,
City.
to the cradle, yeah, to the cradle of civilization, they said. So, in Saudi Arabia kind of area, Iraq, and built like a super machine city and just like outproduced everybody.
Yeah,
Just
I
was
love
like,
that. I saw that,
Yeah,
and I was
that's
like,
my favorite part.
that's Ancapistan.
they
Yeah,
made it
that's-
like Kapistan, man.
They're just going to do everything better than you dumb humans can. What are you going to do
Right.
about it? You're going to buy their
And-
products. That's what you're going to do.
and basically, like, the people, the humans were kind of fine with it. Like, things calmed down for a little bit. They were buying, all the products. They were getting cheap goods, affordable goods. The supply was
Better
plenty.
goods.
The
Yeah.
life was living good. They had flying cars and all that stuff. So life was good. And then the governments were like, "Oh, hell no," like, so they blockaded Machine City and said, "We don't want your cheap goods," and it was just so smart because we see that now with China and just all the talk about just taxes on tradable goods and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like sanctions on like Iran and places
Sanctions
like
on
that.
Iran, yeah, sanctions on Gaza, the Gaza Strip, or Iran, or Russia, or whatever.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for the human governments, I wonder if the robots and the humans would just have this symbiotic relationship where they're just
I mean,
living fantastically. I mean,
Isn't that
yeah, the
typically
robots
how
would
it
have all
works?
the money,
yeah,
or not all the money, but
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be the richest. But then everybody else would be, their all standard of living would be massively improved.
exactly. So what's the point of money if you have everything you need? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, that's economics. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yeah, where goods don't cross borders, soldiers will.
Exactly. So I just thought that was interesting because I think, just like you said, at the end of the day, I think the humans and the robots could have got along, but you just had these states. Okay. We can't have a new power on the block. We can't have it. So they had to nip that in the bud and, hey, let's just block out the sun.
Yeah. Hey, let's pick a fight with the most powerful beings in the planet, and then let's just destroy the planet, because that always ends well.
Wasn't that one of the Bill Gates plans to block out the sun?
No,
that's what he's doing, isn't he?
It's literally one of his plans. I was looking at it on, I don't know if it was in New York Times or something. They were like, we really need to start thinking about blacking out the sky. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's like dimming the sun. It's like,
now what?
There's not like a dial you can just turn and then turn back. It's not. Yeah, that's not how it works, Bill.
Well, even if you could, like, the hubris to think that you would know which way to turn it and how far is just crazy.
And for who? Yeah, to think that it's going to work equally well for everybody on the planet, even if you did have the moral right to do so, which you don't.
So I got a question. What's going on with him lately? He was this big savior figure during the current crisis in the world and looked up to by millions and billions of people and media and everything on TV. And he's not a doctor, but he plays one on TV and everyone listens to him. Yet now that he's getting divorced, all this dirt is coming out and all these connections to a guy who did not kill himself are coming out. And I wonder why his political cover seems to have washed away. Like, why is he seemingly on the chopping block where there's these pieces of information coming out that would normally be not revealed or hidden from view.
Right.
Yeah, all I could do is speculate. I don't know. That is interesting, though. That's not something I've really thought about.
I haven't either, and it's not like they didn't know he was hanging out with Epstein. Like we've seen it. Like we knew he was hanging out with Epstein, and now there's these reports that he went to Epstein's mansion like 28 times. I don't know how many. Like it's a bunch of times. It's like, okay, like what was Bill up to? And then, maybe maybe that had nothing to do with assaulting teenage girls, but I don't know. It's like, what else were you up to? You know what I'm saying? It's weird, man. Like that dude, Bill Gates is. I can't figure him out, but it's not good. I don't know if it's just a power thing of him wanting power. I don't know if it's just the ego of just thinking like, hey, I'm smart enough to figure everything out, or it's just. I think it's him just wanting to be recognized. I think deep down he always wanted to be recognized for something.
Yeah, if I can just watch him talk, and he's presenting an honest portrayal of himself when he's talking, which I don't know if that's true or not, but the sense I get when I watch him, I get the sense that he is a very intelligent person, and he's talking to other highly intelligent people, and they suffer from that ignorance of the enlightened, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that professor problem, right? Where
it's
they don't know how to explain it to somebody who doesn't already have this base of knowledge.
And they think that they're smart, so they think they know it all, or they think they know what's best because they have the most knowledge. Whether or not they never stopped to ask themselves whether they should or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he's a truly evil individual, or if whether he really thinks of himself as a positive operator on the planet. But he definitely seems to be one that isn't asking himself the moral question of what he's doing.
Right. And the key thing for me is just the turn in the past 4 weeks where he's gone from this great guy to, oh, look at this. He was picking up on underlings at Microsoft, and he was hanging out with this guy down on this island.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like that, I don't know. Like, did he piss somebody off, or
what was Melinda really part of that?
Oh,
I mean, the operation of keeping these things under wraps, was she part of the
that's what
club?
It sounded. That's what it seems like.
Yeah,
because it feels
you
like
divorce me and you lose your protections.
Lose your protection, man. I mean, there's talk of for him making sexual harassment advances towards employees, and like, why is all this coming out now?
Yeah.
There's speaking of theories, there's a meta theory about this, in that there is because of all the interventions that have been happening and the reckless money printing, that those in the know to get out of harm's way. And so like a lot of those CEOs stepped down like towards the beginning of about a year ago, roughly. And that there's ways of like protecting money and hiding money. And so a divorce is a good way to carve up where this money goes and how much of it can be protected. And so maybe these revelations are plausible cover for the divorce being legitimate,
as opposed to just a way of hiding money or protecting money.
I'm totally speculating. No information has come my way that I am aware of, but I don't know. It just makes sense, like you would explain why this information is able to be out there. And why it's being reported on.
But you need it out there in order to have a legitimate divorce. I mean, who cares if it's a legitimate divorce or not? All you have to do is not want to be married to someone anymore.
Tell that to the IRS, buddy.
I don't know what the IRS's policies on coming after billionaires is.
All right, well let's bring this back to the Animatrix. Right after this one final point, on Hulu there was a special. It was like a presentation, a one-man show shot in New York by this guy. I don't remember the name of the guy, but it's called In and of Itself, and he does all of these card tricks and weaves this narrative story, and then he demonstrates like incredible intuitive stuff where he like everyone goes into this arena or this theater and chooses something from this board of like hundreds of different attributes, and everyone picks one, like dreamer, believer, leader, accountant, goof off, whatever, each person picks one, and then he goes through the entire audience and lets them know which one they picked. And Bill Gates is in that audience, and he says leader to him.
Interesting.
Because that's apparently what he picked when he went in. But I wonder if he's got that that he was kind of bullied and nerd growing up kind of a thing, and so it's like, I'm going to show them.
That's what I pick up. That's what I pick up from him, because apparently, I don't know where I've seen it, but he was hanging around with Epstein because Epstein was doing something with MIT, and Bill Gates thought Epstein could be an end for him to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know how true that is. I didn't read up on it. But, Bill Gates seems like a guy that would want like some Nobel Prize. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, Nobel Peace Prize or a Nobel Prize in economics or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Humanitarianism. Yeah. He could tell he's been angling for that for a long time with all the stuff he's done in Africa, with all the the vaccines, the microeconomics, and all kind of stuff he's been doing. So I could see him just after making all that money, I remember somebody saying, some rich guy, I think it was Bill O'Reilly, way back in the day, but he was just like, he was talking about like why, like people like Warren Buffett, stuff like that, would be like, hey, tax us more. All these rich people were like, yeah, you should tax us. And he was just saying, some rich people just feel bad for being rich. Like they feel guilty about it,
Mm-hmm.
And I think somebody like Bill Gates, who has, more money than anybody, I think he just feels like he has to prove that he's like this great person, like this savior to humanity. He doesn't want to be seen as like the rich evil billionaire. He wants to be seen as like this guy that's, a true savior of humanity or something like that. I could just see that being the case.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, all right. So enough of our dime store psychologizing.
What the hell are we talking about?
That's right, yeah. So let's get back to this movie real quick, because we are going to have to start winding down. We're already approaching an hour of our runtime here, and that's usually what I try to limit us to. So are there any other points that, Robert, you want to make about the Second Renaissance one? I think that one of your points that you often make is if something has rights or not, if it is sentient or not. We've had this argument before, like when we talked about Her and
Star Trek
Ex Machina. So,
yep.
In this trial, and I actually forget which way they argued it, but did they say that the robot, it was not sentient and so was not able to be tried? Or remind me. I want
to say that it was the opposite. I want to say that they, in their wisdom, they recognized that it did something.
So it had volition and made a choice, and so it did commit a crime.
And so that it didn't commit a crime.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I think that's how it went down.
It was shut down. It was destroyed. But
yeah,
was that the punishment for his crime, like a death sentence, or was it because the wishes of the owner who he murdered was to have him shut down. So he was property.
I think it was the other thing. Yeah, the first thing you said, that he was guilty of a crime and therefore he could be executed. Yeah. I'm not exactly clear on how individual these machines all are. If there's some sort of a hive mind, or if they're all super different, like, is every Sentinel like its own being, or does it have its own like simple programming, or is it as smart as like an Agent Smith character? It's not all exactly super clear.
Or do Sentinels exist at all?
Oh, indeed. I don't know, man. It's a crazy fun universe though, and I really do enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah, I do think they kind of evolved. I mean, there's so much we don't know about the Matrix because, like, we focus like on one little part of even like the supposed real world, like Machine City. I mean, there could be other cities on the Earth that's like machines and robots just living their lives, or like there's so many things that could be happening on the Earth. We just don't see it because they chose not to focus on it. I mean, the whole Matrix thing could be just one little state. I mean, one little geographical area on the Earth with tons of crops of humans, where the rest of the Earth is like machines living their life or some shit. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe there are peaceful machines just living next to humans, just hanging out.
Yeah, like you have just like we have like farm area on Earth, like in the United States, the Midwest or whatever. Maybe you got like just crops of humans, crops of humans around the world. You know what I'm saying? Then you have like cities with robots and stuff. Like, I don't know. That's just how they roll.
Yeah, it's almost like they can't get it wrong because you can do so much and make it kind of work
and explain it away. Yeah, there's a million ways to tell stories and a million settings. It could be in an old version of the Matrix. It could be in a future version of the Matrix. It could be a little side construct program. It could be not in the Matrix at all.
They've basically turned humans into computer programs. Like, just like we, turn the computer on and off, we do what we want with it, we unplug it, we plug it back in. They pretty much done that to humans, where it's just like they're just this little utility that they use. Like, humans are just this utility that they use for power, for entertainment, for whatever. Like, just kind of this meaningless thing that's just a part of their society. It's not like this global war, machines versus humans. It's just one little thing that's happening, entire society of machines. I don't know, kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just tell you my mind is blown, man. After doing this this entire series, I don't know if I figured it out any more than I did when I watched these 20 years ago. But
no, not at all.
All right, well, why don't we start to wind these down? So, Robert, do you want to give us your final summary review, and how many short vignettes out of 10 do you give the Animatrix?
Well, it's a nice companion piece to the films. I'm glad it exists, and I wish there wasn't IP laws, and then people could just make their own Matrix stories without any kind of hassle from the man. But I mean, there have been 1,000,001 parodies, but you know what I'm talking about, where these kinds of things, because it is just a rich universe, and it could do with all kinds of talent. I mean, who knows what kind of amazing talented directors, especially with the way technology is these days. You can basically make a movie on your laptop with all kinds of top-notch special effects if you know a little bit of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a fantastic universe, and this is it's each of these little vignettes isn't long enough to be really super compelling, but it just provides a little glimpse into the world that into a world where if you're a fan, you've already imagined all kinds of things. You've already, I don't know, fantasized about yourself being in the Matrix, or, thought about the world in various different ways, different angles. And these stories come along and just add to the richness, give you maybe some more ideas. Maybe you never even thought about it from that perspective before, but, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or, oh, that adds my appreciation for this a little bit more here and there. The quality is a mixed bag from my perspective. Some are better than others, but that's what you're going to get. I would give this I'm such a huge fan of animation, so you got to take that into account. But I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10, a 7 set of vignettes out of 10. I can take or leave some of them, but some of them are really strong, and I really appreciate that they add to the lore of the world. And hopefully someone doesn't come along and say that this isn't canon anymore or whatever, blah, 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 when Disney buys it,
Well, I can comment on that. It says here, the Animatrix serves as a canon source of information about the Matrix world. It contains history of the Matrix, the rise of the machines, the war, and why the Matrix came to be created and humanity enslaved, according to movies.stackexchange.com.
Well, good. Hopefully it remains canon, but,
But you never know. They might blow the whole thing up.
I want to ask you guys, like, just overall with the whole Matrix universe and storyline, what are your favorite sort of allegories to, our world, to our life? Some things that you kind of look at and say, that's kind of sort of a representation of what we deal with, in our daily lives.
I'd say there's definitely the red pill, blue pill thing.
The obvious, that's the big obvious one, right?
Yeah. I mean, that you are privy to information that other people are not, and that you're trying to evangelize to normies to get them to see it as well.
Wake them up.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great meme with Cypher where he says, I don't even see the Matrix anymore. I just see psyop, false flag, and bullshit, Or I don't see the news anymore. I just see psyop and bullshit.
So good.
So true, man. It's just good, man. And it's just so true, right? Like, since I've been in this sort of, whatever you want to call it, libertarian, anarchist, just red pill, whatever you want to call it, it's just like, it's really like you see in the Matrix Code when you watch, like, you just put on, I go to my parents' house and they got CNN on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, what the hell is this, man? Like, y'all, how can you watch this stuff? It's like, it's so obviously just propaganda and just hard, like, just stupid people. And you just go out in the world and you just, you go and just, you see people and it's like, man, we really are living in a Matrix. Like, we are really in a system of control.
Yeah, the fact that people don't just watch CNN ironically, but they actually watch it for information, for their daily programming.
Don Lemon.
It's hard, man.
People look to Don Lemon for information, man. Like,
it's wild. My initial take on anything I see in mainstream news or anything the government says is immediately that it's most likely bullshit.
Like, look with the UFO thing. Like, I wanted to believe in UFOs all my life, man. But now they're like admitting to it. And I'm like, well, guess there's no aliens. UFOs don't exist. They're trying to up the budget for Space Force. That's it. It's like,
damn it. Can I have anything?
Can I have anything?
So as soon as they confirm something, it's bullshit. Perfect.
It's just bullshit. It's horseshit.
Yeah, they'll be coming out with the anti-Bigfoot force coming out next. And
that's right, man.
All right, Ryan, what's your score out of vignettes and your final summary on Animatrix?
I like 7 to 10 because there are some skippable stories, but there are some real good ones, and it's a perfect companion piece to the entire Matrix universe. I think if you're into the Matrix, like it's a must watch. Like it's a must watch. So, and even the ones, even some of the little stories that you might not like at first, you can go back and watch them. And like I didn't like the world record one at first when I first saw it, years ago. But then I went back and watched it like later, and I was like, man, this was really good. Just you just as you just it just hits you a certain way at certain times. Hey, yeah, I enjoy it, man. I'm probably gonna go back and watch the whole thing again because I know there's a couple of the short stories that I just hadn't watched probably since I first saw it. I just want to see how they impact me now versus when I was, I don't know, 22 or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a sign that of art, that
Right.
something can be revisited and reinterpreted based on
Yeah.
where the viewer is coming from and what time in your life and events that have happened to you since or recently, and you'll view things
Exactly.
differently. Yeah. So I'm going to concur with you guys and maybe give it an 8 out of 10. I go a little bit higher. I think that this is definitely, if you're already like plugged into the Matrix and interested in this, then this is a must watch, and it does fill in a lot of the blanks. It fills in the universe a little bit more, and it adds some interesting flavor to it. I find that actually, after seeing all of them, yeah, some are a little bit stronger than others, but none of them are like terrible. Like they're
Right.
all worthy of watching. They're all well done. And the cool thing is that I guess that these were conceived of, this whole project was conceived of when they were on their publicity tour for the original movie that came out in 1999. So all of these ideas and little vignettes were in development before Reloaded and Revolutions. And so it's not like they were added after the fact and tacked on. They were sort of like
Yeah.
in co-development, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
There's also like a ton of comic books, that's kind of been spun off with the Matrix. Some of them written by one of the Wachowskis. Some of them are just by other writers, but I haven't read any of them. But I've just watched a couple of reviews, and it's like some real good, interesting stuff. Like just diving into the Matrix universe. So
Yeah.
so there's like even if somebody wanted to like create some anime down the road, just adapting some of the comic books and stuff. There's like tons of work out there that they could use.
Yeah, and a couple of video games, Enter the Matrix
Yeah,
and Path of Neo, I hear is good. I think Mike was saying
yeah,
Path of Neo is really good.
yeah. Into the Matrix. Apparently, the story in that is canon. I don't know if it's gonna stay canon with Matrix 4 coming out, but apparently it's still like considered a part of the Matrix, universe, or whatever.
Okay, all right, awesome. Well, we're definitely gonna have to do Matrix 4 when it comes out. I think it's gonna be released on HBO Max and
Yeah,
should be coming out in December. So, Robert, maybe that'll be one of our Christmas type movies, Matrix 4.
Yeah.
might even go to a theater. Shit.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I'll ever go back, man. Now that they got these first run
Oh, good.
releases on like HBO and
I
stuff, it's
I
great.
know, man. I know. I've been begging for this for like 8 years, man. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, yeah. The last movie I saw in the theater, and the first one in a long time, was Joker. I hadn't been to a
Oh, really?
movie for like 10 years prior to that.
Wow. Wow. You go see Joker?
Yeah, well, it had such buzz, and we wanted to do an episode on it, so I had to go see it.
It was a good movie, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't regret it at all. Had a good time.
No, it was a good movie.
yeah. So that's our review on Joker, everyone. Now we did an episode on it a while back.
I'm going to check that out.
So anyway, Ryan, where can people follow you other than
Yeah.
the previous appearances that will be on our show notes page that can be found at lastnighters.com/178? I know you're pretty prolific on Twitter.
Yeah, man. Just come, follow me on Twitter at Afrolibertarian. I'll give you a follow back, and I tweet fairly regularly. Not, I don't tweet like crazy, but I mostly just retweet all the other smart people. So
Like Michael Malice or Tom Woods. Yeah.
pretty much, Dave Smith, Tom Woods, Michael Malice, Jeff Dice, Robert Murphy. Sometimes, that's about it.
Yeah. You don't retweet me much, but I don't say much.
Yeah, I know, man. I'll retweet this episode for you, though.
Oh, thank you. So yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Ryan, and I hope you can stick around for our Patreon supporting content that comes after this. We call it Kathleen Turner Overdrive, so people can go to lastnight.com/Patreon, send some dollars our way, and be able to get a hold of that, and also the pre-show content that was very riveting. Our opening discussion of trying to get your phone to work versus your computer, and you had a Morpheus icon for a minute there.
Yep.
Very exciting stuff.
I still see it.
Yeah, it's not showing up for us, but oh well.
Damn system of control again. Damn it.
That's right. But we could imagine what it would be like. So anyway, Robert, we're going to be doing something not the Matrix next week. We have wrapped up. We are now unplugging from the Matrix until at least December, when we might plug back in. But it's Memorial Day coming up, so we're going to be doing a military-inspired film, an Oscar-winning film, Jarhead, with the podcast host of the Why I Am Anti-War podcast. He was on Liberty Weekly a few months ago, and he's very well-spoken. It was a really good episode, and I'll put that on our show notes page for this episode so that people can get familiar with him before next week. But it should be a really good discussion. I'm actually very excited to have him on. So
that guy's awesome.
Yeah, you've heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's very prolific on Twitter, and he doesn't pull any punches, man. He goes after people. It's great.
He does.
So that'll be our episode next week, Jarhead, which I think he won Best Picture, I want to say, and I think it was one of the lowest budget films to win Best Picture.
Mm.
Is that like
Something
Jake Gyllenhaal in the Middle East fighting the Iraq War or something like that?
Yeah. Yep.
First Iraq War, I believe.
Yeah, I've seen it one time, and I don't remember it all that well, but I remember it being pretty good. And of course, I'll be watching it this week.
Have you guys seen Generation Kill?
No.
Is that a documentary or is that about a movie?
It's a TV show, well, a mini series about the first Iraq War.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like Jarhead, but it's pretty good. It's a good like military show. If you want to check it out.
Okay.
From the creators of The Wire. I don't know if you ever seen The Wire.
Oh yeah, Wire's awesome.
Yeah. So
feels very dated now.
I know, right?
Getting a warrant.
I know, right? Wiretaps, beepers, beepers and shit.
Civil rights lawyers.
It's all very quaint.
Yeah, I did like what do they call it? The mini Amsterdam area.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love just like go ahead and do the drugs.
Bro, that show led me to libertarianism. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously. Like that was like the first few little nuggets dropped in my head about being like against the drug war and stuff like that. And it just kind of, it didn't push me to libertarianism, but it kind of laid those little seeds in my head that kind of sparked my interest down the road.
The splinters in your mind.
Seriously, man. Like it made me see how just inept government is, like just by design. It just can't work.
Yeah.
It's not even about putting smart people in a place and that like that. It's just not going to work,
Yeah. In fact, sometimes it makes it worse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, please.
You mean every time?
Every
sometimes it's equals to every time, but yeah.
I'd rather have inept. I'd rather have inept.
Inept was awesome.
I'd rather not have them at all, but all right.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, Ryan, this has been a lot of fun. And again, I hope you can stick around. And we'll be back next week, everyone, with Jarhead, with the host of the Why I Am Anti-War podcast. And that will be a lot of fun. So with that, we'll say good night from last night, everyone. Peace out.
Peace.
Okay, and we're going to continue for just a few more minutes in the actual Anarchy podcast. We always go a little bit long, so I will try to keep this a little bit short. But one of the things that dawned on me when I was watching this with my wife over the past couple of nights is the one where there's the boy who's in the high school and he's running away from the agents. And they open that one with him falling off of a building. Now, this came out in 2003. And something very similar to that happened a mere 2 years prior. And I'm wondering if this is one of those iconic scenes captured, sort of like you were talking about, Robert, in the second Renaissance, where they had those iconic moments, Tiananmen Square and the Vietnam general getting shot in the head. If this was meant to elicit something related to the 9/11 event. Or is this coincidental? And if coincidental, wouldn't that be a bit too soon? Wouldn't that be like a fresh wound to where one would say, you know what? We were planning to do this thing, and then something in real life happened, and so we're not going to do that thing anymore.
Well, I remember right after 9/11, they canceled a whole bunch of events. And yeah, it was kind of seen as paying your respects to the fallen and that kind of thing and being respectful. In this, though, I didn't catch that at all.
No, neither me.
I didn't. Yeah, no. The kid jumping off the building just struck me as a natural thing for the kid to do when faced with being captured by the agents. I mean, if he really... I'm still not exactly clear on how everything works in the Matrix world. I mean, he jumped off the building and then he stopped, or he kind of woke himself up by dying in the Matrix world.
I don't know. They were able to pull him out into the real world afterwards. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I know they open with him falling, and then they tell the story, and then they close with him falling and just narrowly missing those spikes. It's like this perspective, you're like coming down at it, and then it goes, whomp. And it's very jarring watching that. But if I maybe rephrase my question slightly, I think if a 9/11 style event happened more recently, and then somebody a year or two later made a movie or TV show with somebody doing something very, very similar to what that horrific event like is associated with, I don't know if it would be okay to do that anymore. Like, I wonder if there'd be this cancel culture outrage.
Oh yeah,
from something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, depending on what it is, but yeah, I mean, if it's somebody like SNL doing it, then nobody's going to give a shit. It's totally fine. But if it's some right-wing comedian or whatever, some kind of edgy whatever, then yeah, everybody's panties are going to get in a twist, and they'll be terrible people.
Yeah,
there's different rules depending on what team you're playing for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I know Trudeau can get away with having done blackface in his past, but anyone else, not so much.
Yeah. If you're a Democrat from South Carolina, you can dress up like a Klansman and do all the blackface you want, but it's totally fine.
But if you're a singer on what is it, The Voice or one of those shows, I guess there was a picture of the kid, and it wasn't even him wearing this thing. It was his friend, and it wasn't like you know this story? Like some kid got kicked off of one of these shows, because
Yeah.
some
That's it?
picture, the Voice or American Idol, I don't know, one of them, he got kicked off because some picture from 5 years ago that this kid is in, there's someone wearing like a white hooded costume of some sort, and everyone just assumed it was a Klansman thing.
So he was standing next to a kid dressed up like a ghost, and so now he had to get kicked off the
Right?
Voice.
Yeah. Like
Just
that's how
imagine-
sensitive things are now, man. It's
But
crazy.
just think how stupid it is that you think a kid would dress up as a Klansman, like of all things. Klansman.
Yeah. That's what every kid wants to dress up as.
Right. It's like,
Yeah, but I mean,
Oh.
so they get this outrage about any like perceived or even potentially perceived as a slight, even though there was no intention behind it at all whatsoever. And in fact, it's like totally up to the interpretation of the offended on whether it's
Yeah.
offensive. It's
Yeah.
so it's just so bizarre.
no, it's like after every like mass shooting there is in America, and then some action movie is coming out like that week or something. There's this outcry of like, should this movie be released right
Oh,
now
God.
after dealing with
Yes.
this tragedy? And like,
So dumb. Yes.
and Hollywood always gets put in a funny position because they're so anti-gun and all that stuff, but they're like, this is just entertainment, guys.
Yeah, if they're so anti-gun, but they make a lot of money depicting people using
People
guns. I
with
remember
guns.
I remember back in the day when video stores were a thing, and I remember just like looking at all the videos up there and just kind of eyeballing like, well, how many of them are holding a gun? And it was a huge swath of them, like it was like
Yeah.
over half of them had a gun on the cover.
Hell yeah, man! I love it.
Yeah. And the hero
my
like
era.
saves the day with guns like
Yeah.
all the time.
Exactly. I mean, 80s, man. That's why I just love like old 80s action, man. It's just like dude with gun. You know what I'm saying? Just my gun's bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we got to have you back for, Ryan. Is an '80s action movie with a gun.
Oh man, listen, let's go. I don't.
We
care.
haven't done Predator, right, Robert? Have we?
What?
I mean, I don't know. It's a classic. I mean, still holds up to this very day.
Put me
Fantastic
down.
film.
Put me down right now for Predator. Whenever you guys do it, I'm here.
All right. That you heard it here, folks. Ryan Jones is coming back for Predator at some point in the near future.
Say no more.
All right. We're not going to wait 2 years, Ryan. We're gonna do it in a couple of months.
That's what.
All right. Well, hey man, this has been a lot of fun. People can find you at Twitter at the Afrolibertarian, and we'll of course have links and everything on our show notes page, also to your prior appearances on there, and that can all be found at actualanarchy.com/235. And again, this has been great, and let's not let this go too long. Again, we'll be back with Predator in a couple of months. And Robert, you got any final parting messages for people here? What can they do to support the show, and what can they do to support just humanity in their struggle against the machines?
Oh man, putting a lot of weight on everybody's shoulders. But the good news is that it's real easy. You just gotta not fall into the peer pressure of all the tyrants and the authoritarians that think that you need to listen to what the talking heads on the TV say and then do what they say. You just got to use your own brain and use some critical thinking and decide for yourself the best course of action, and just live your life. And if you wanted to go my route and you wanted to be more of a libertarian and cap and totally reject political authority, that'd be fantastic. And and then you could support the show. You could buy some merch. You could do those kinds of things. But really just, improve your own life by improving everybody else's, by rejecting political authority.
Yeah. Listen to more of our show. Listen to Dave Smith's Part of the Problem. Listen to the Tom Wood Show. Listen to the Mises Institute's stuff, Mises Weekends. Is that what Jeff's still calling that?
Yep.
Yeah. Go to the MisesInstitute.org, Mises.org. Lots of great stuff there. Counterflow with Buck Johnson, super awesome. Lots of stuff. Liberty Weekly, of course. Go to libertarianinstitute.org, and also the Pete Quinones Free Man Beyond the Wall show. There's so much good content out there. In fact, if you're listening to us, you must be scraping the bottom of the barrel because you've already gone through all the good stuff. Oh,
Your
and
appetite is
peddling,
still ravenous.
yeah, and peddling fiction, who was our guest for Desperado earlier this month for the Cinco de Mayo special. His stuff, awesome stuff. He's so lewd and fired up on every episode, and yet very informative. So I love that guy, Johnny Profita. He's great. We're gonna have him back on for Point Break at some point soon. The original Point Break with Swayze and Neo. So yeah, that's what you guys can do. Also follow Ryan on Twitter. That'll help out as well. And we'll be back next week with Jarhead with how does he say it? Is it MD Vet 4? Maryland Vet 4 from the YIM Anti-War podcast. He'll be on for Jarhead. So we'll see you guys all next week. Peace out and maximum freedom, everyone. See you later. Bye.
The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.